Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Welcome to the Sunday chat, and in the packed video today we've got a naming ceremony. We'll have a chat about the show, Orchid show I went to yesterday, and you can't go to a show without buying orchids, can you? So we'll have a look at what I came back with. Nothing new, they're replacements, but nonetheless new plants for here now. And just a general chit chat. So without further ado, as they say, let's get going. Okay, so first of all, this is just a bit of fun, mind you. I was goaded into doing this. We're having a naming ceremony. It appears that because I called the humidifier Hurricane Hector, and that was based on the row it made. When I first got it and I fired it up, it sounded like a Harrier jump jet. So it got a name, Hurricane Hector. And apparently I've now got two new pieces of kit. We've got the air cleaner and we've got the dehumidifier, and they need names. Now I was going to run a competition and actually get you lot to name it, but then the winner might have been something I didn't like, and I'd have sort of got myself stuck in a corner then. No, I'd have backed up into a corner. Anyway, so this is based on, some of you may know, a comedian a long time ago called Larry Grayson was the first person on TV that I can remember anyway that was what was called camp. That's not necessarily gay, it can be, but not necessarily. But he was effeminate. He had long arms and big hands, and he deliberately wore short sleeves on his jacket so that his hands came out. And he had his own little expressions, you know. His favourite one was "shut that door," and etc. But based on some of his names for some of his friends, one of which really tickled me, which I can't do the voice, but with the voice and the mannerisms, there were intonations with some of these names, shall we say. And the one that tickled me was his postman friend, Pop It In Pete. Think about it. Anyway, so based on that sort of era and things like that, we will name the air cleaner Clean It Up Cleo. So that's the air cleaner. And you might not like this one. The dehumidifier is going to be called Suck It Out Sam. So those are the names for the two bits of kit. I'll probably forget them tomorrow anyway, but yeah, I had a giggle thinking those up. Right, so that's the kit named, and a bit of daftness to start the day, why not? You do have to bear in mind, this might be quite a short video. It's actually 13 degrees in here. Oh, it's just gone up to 14 because the door's open. It's not very warm out here today. But now you can sort of see what I was getting at about me not being affected that badly by cold and heat and things like that. A lot of people at 13 degrees with just short sleeves on would be shivering, whereas I'm just, it's okay, I'll manage. Right, the show yesterday. Obviously this is back at the Orchid Society that I left, that I resigned from, and it was I arrived a little nervous because I didn't know what I was going to expect. I mean, in theory there could have been some hostility from certainly some of the committee anyway, but nonetheless the main person who I had the problem with was on the door. So I've now got to pay and get in. I nearly walked straight in out of habit, because for 7 or 8 years or whatever it was, I got in free because I was a member. And I just thought, we've got to pay, haven't we? But it was uneventful. It was just like anybody else walking up to pay to go in. So that was okay. And I spent a lot of the day with Lynn and Alan and Brian. Now Lynn, you know, does the videos. And Alan is the guy where the garden party was. I filmed his grow spaces, or greenhouses, whatever you want to call them. The ones where you get in and you can't even walk down the path because there's so many plants. So apparently he's had a clear out. Yeah, and also Brian. Brian's the guy who I bought that beautiful Odontoglossum Anna Claire from, and often makes comments on my Oncidium types. He grows mainly Odonts, Cattleyas and Cymbidiums. Those are his main things, and he has some beautiful plants that are really well grown. So we hung around together for quite a bit of time. I met up lunchtime and had some lunch, and later in the day Lynn decided she wanted a coffee to keep her going, and she refused to have any more coffee from the cafeteria in the place where we were. She said, I want a proper coffee, we're going to walk into town and get a Costa. Now I wouldn't normally bother because I drink black coffee, and black coffee's black coffee, some's better than others, yeah. So anyway, so the four of us strolled into town to get a Costa coffee. And Brian paid for it. Brian paid for all the coffee, which was a really nice sort of thing. I mean, out of the four of us, he is the only one that's still working. He's half working, half retired, I think. But anyway, he treated us to a Costa coffee. And yeah, so and we came back and we sat out in the sun on the benches for a long time, just chatting away about all sorts of things. Didn't even bother going back into the show until later on. And by the time we got back into the show, they were thinking about calling the raffle, and I'm thinking, well, if the raffle's going to be done, it must be getting late. And I sort of looked at my phone to get the time, and I thought, well, that'll do me. I didn't buy any raffle tickets. I don't buy the raffle tickets because it's always the last thing, and it ties you. You know, you might want to go home a bit earlier because you've seen everything you want and you can't go because you've got raffle tickets. So I don't buy any, then I'm not tied. So I set off a bit earlier than the others. The show itself, the actual, the tables were, I would say, a little thin, but for the time of year and the growing season we've had, it was pretty good stuff. Now, for those of you who know what happened, the reason why I was no longer a member there, I didn't take any cameras in, so I didn't even take my stills camera, so no free publicity for them. And unfortunately for us, no video, you know. So, but that's how it goes. We will have the other society I do belong to, the one I'm treasurer for, the Wessex Orchid Society. Their show is the end of October. Literally, I think it's the last Sunday in October, which is almost the last day of the month, as far as I know anyway. It's a new venue, and it's a non-competitive show, so it's for display only. And Burnham's will be there, Lawrence Hobbs will be there, we'll have traders there. Peter White can't come, which is the accessories, that's all the pots and the bark and the moss and all that sort of stuff. And he usually brings some plants in as well to sell, but he's not coming. And what Lynn has arranged is that she's going to effectively pre-order some of the stuff that would normally sell and buy it off of Peter White and arrange for some sort of collection, and then we'll sell it ourselves, if you see what I mean. So we will have some stuff to sell. And I'm not getting stuck selling that. I'll have enough trouble trying to get out of being on the door for the whole time, because as treasurer, where the money's involved, I'm supposed to be there. But I have a deputy treasurer, and possibly the previous treasurer, Paul, he's actually turned up at the last couple of shows and done the door. He actually loves doing the door. It was, I take it or leave it, shall we say, and that's the polite version. There are 1,000,001 other places I would rather be, basically, than stuck on the door. But somebody's got to be there, take the money, keep the account straight, and you know, try and encourage people to become members if they're not already members, all that sort of stuff. Find out how they heard about the show, so that we can analyse later which advertising and display posters did the best and which ones didn't do any good at all, and we can stop doing them. So we do that sort of thing. So that's that. At the show yesterday, Arthur from Burnham's is having trouble getting over COVID. He got COVID some time ago. It's not like a now thing, but he keeps, well, it's long COVID he's basically got. He can't get over it, and symptoms keep coming back and keep revisiting. And he wasn't well enough to do the drive down and do the van and everything, so Sarah came yesterday. And it's a nice change to see Sarah at one of those two shows, because it's normally just Arthur does them and Sarah doesn't, so it was good to see Sarah. And Lawrence was pushed up in the corner as usual, and we've got a problem with Lawrence because he takes up a corner space, and then we've got our centre tables. There's not much gap between the edge of his display and his sales area and our competition tables. And unfortunately, it's just inside the door where all of Lawrence's really nice orchids are for sale. And people stop and want to look at them, and that's it. That gap between those two things is totally blocked now, and people can't get in or out. There's an awful lot of excuse me said in that bit. But yeah, what I did want to say was the other trader, Trey, was there, and had a long chat with Trey. And he is putting an order in to the Far East, I forget where he said, Malaysia I think, for dendrobiums. And I said, well come on then, where's the list? He said, well I haven't got the list yet. He said, I'm still working on it. But he said the order will go in. The plants probably won't get here till either later this year or next year. And then he doesn't sell his plants straight on. He always makes sure that you know, they've settled into our environment in our country and they've started to grow in some shape or form. He doesn't just chuck them straight out the door. So he does acclimatise them and everything. So he said they'll probably be ready like for Malvern or something like that, which is the middle of next year. So it's a long-term thing. He's also going to put an order into Equigenera. So we've got one from the Far East and one from the Central Americas. So that will be the likes of Oncidiums, Cattleyas, Masdevallias, Draculas, all that sort of stuff, Equigenera. And the one from the Far East I think is basically just dendrobiums, but I'm not sure on that. But in November, the Devon Orchid Society's annual show was on the Saturday in the middle of the Queen's death, if you know what I mean. So 2 days before her state funeral and everything, so they cancelled as a mark of respect. That's been reorganised until November. So in November, Lynn's going to come meet halfway sort of thing, and I'll go on to Burnham's for the Devon Orchid Society's show. So we'll have a trip to Burnham's basically, which is a good place to have a show because you'll have a couple of Orchid Society displays. Trey will be there, so there's a trader as well as Burnham's itself and the whole of the nursery to look round. So it's a blooming good day out. And we've already agreed that we will stop at the place for our breakfast on the way through, so that day's planned already. But Trey will have the dendrobium list by then, and he will bring it. Lynn will be very interested in that as well, and from my point of view I may take my laptop. I'll have to send an email to Sarah and say would it be okay to have her Wi-Fi password. She must have Wi-Fi in the place. If I could have a Wi-Fi password, it would be worth taking my laptop so that we can have a look down some of the names, and any that I think I might fancy I can look them up on the laptop and we can get a decent picture of what the blooms look like and a write-up and stuff like that. If not, Lynn will do it on her phone anyway. So we should be able to sort out some pre-orders of dendrobiums for some time in the future. And I'll be looking for things that I haven't got or things that I have had and really regret losing. So those would be replacements, but at the moment I can't think of any of those. and I'll be looking for stuff that's different, that things like antelope dendrobiums. I've only ever had one and it didn't last long. It just wasn't a good, it was one of those that came in those lumps of coconut with all the roots embedded in there, and you try taking it off to get it potted up sort of thing, and you end up destroying the root system, and it never recovered basically. So that's what happened to that. But I would like at least one antelope dendrobium, and I'll have a look through the list basically, and many of them I will know and will have already checked out and thought, no, I don't fancy that. A fair few I suspect I will have never heard of. Those are the ones we need to look up and see what we're getting into. You know, you get something like, I had a comment asking about Dendrobium nesta. Is it a good one to have? Well, it's one of my favourite blooms, yes, but you've got a lot of plant that blooms once a year and the blooms last 3 weeks. That's not good value for the care and attention and the looking after that you spend to get 3 weeks worth of blooms, but they are stunning and the fragrance is absolutely gorgeous. So you know, you have to weigh it up. And then you get like a black hair type that doesn't even need much care at all through the winter. If you try caring for them in the winter, you probably kill it. And their blooms last 2 or 3 months, you know, but they're rarely fragrant. You see, it swings and roundabouts, so we will see what we can find. And I'll also have a look at the Ecuagenera list. I saw a plant at the show yesterday. Before I came out here, I went on the internet to see if I could get a reasonable picture of the blooms. It's one of those plants that the blooms don't take a very good picture because they're an unusual shape. So you're into problems with depth of field, colour rendition and things like that. But when you see it for real, you just can't stop looking at it. It's absolutely stunning. It's a plant I'd never heard of before, and it's now on the most wanted list. I want that. Now it's a maxillaria, so again that would be Ecuagenera, not the Far East. And I will do my best to get it. I'll put a picture up of it now with the pop-up of the name. It's one I hadn't heard of before. It's a maxillaria that I'd never heard of, but the blooms are absolutely stunning. They're not big, but it's an oncidium-like plant leaf-wise, but with very narrow, almost non-existent pseudobulbs. There's just like a shape that comes out of the ground and then the leaf, and the blooms are held up. Now, a lot of maxillarias, the blooms are right down in the plant, and unless you've got an awful lot of them, you've got a job to see them because they're buried in amongst the leaves and, you know, the bulbs and everything, so they don't show so well. There's one that's almost black that the blooms are absolutely really attractive, but you've got to find your way through the foliage to be able to see them, if you see what I mean, so they don't present very well. Anyway, that particular one that you've just had a look at, I'm after. I had a look, and it's comes into an odd category. It's a warmer cloud forest plant. Now when you mention cloud forest, everybody immediately jumps to, oh, cool growing then. No, not always. There are some lower lying cloud forests that are warmer. Not warm, warmer. And it comes from the lower montane forest, so lower cloud forest. So it should be okay here, that's what I'm getting at. Right, and I'm going to end with the 2 plants that I got, so it does mean putting the coffee down. As I said, I'm keeping this relatively short because it's not that warm out here, shall we say. Right, so both of these are replacements to a degree. And this is number 1, and we can play Can You Tell What It Is Yet? And no, you can't. Now if you looked at the tips of the leaves, you might think, oh, he's got another oncidium. And actually it's a dendrobium. And before I show it to you, I'll show you why I've got a replacement, if I can find it. I've still got the old one. Here it is. That is a marvellous piece of kit, isn't it? That's what's left of my Dendrobium hibiki. So now you know what this one is. It has a potential kiki. The new growth it started has rotted, and there's another potential kiki up here. If the kikis grow into sensible looking things, I will take them off and keep them. Hello, pussycat. Hello. Don't get under my feet. Come and say hello before you go out then. Come and say hello. Who's in there then? Who's that then? He went outside this morning, and that was hotly followed by there was another cat in the garden. And I heard row, followed by scrabble, 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 as the other cat vacated the premises. He went up the tree and over the shed and out of the garden. Because I had to go and get the torch to go out there and make sure Mojo hadn't followed him, because the cat would have shown him the way out of the garden, basically. But I think he's getting a bit too old to get up the tree. Get up there, I doubt if he'd get down again, that's the problem. But no, he was stood in the middle of the garden, making himself look big, as they do. But he saw him off. Just him all there. Right, so this is the replacement hibiki. And this was chosen for the number of newish growths that are still growing. The likes of this one, and this one. So a good number of new growths. Now that's in the cocoa peat, and it's bone dry at the moment, and that's exactly what I want. Now I'm going to do some studying with this. I have a little bit of information that Lynn might have for me, because Lynn seems to grow it reasonably well, but then she's lost a couple as well. But Lawrence, that was a mealybug. Mind, no, that can't have picked it up here, because I left them in the lounge last night when I got home. Anyway, so that's one, Dendrobium hibiki, and I might leave this one in the pot and just take great care with the watering and not disturb it. We'll see what happens. And there's some new growths coming out of the very base as well. So anyway, that's that one. And then, as you know, I don't grow Phalaenopsis, although I do have a couple on the kitchen windowsill, but I don't grow Phalaenopsis. Same as I don't grow Cymbidiums, you know, I don't grow Cymbidiums. We've gone to from 1 to 3 this year, so we've had a bit of an increase on the Cymbidium front. And I'm afraid we've got a Phalaenopsis, so we're going up on the Phalaenopsis front as well. And there's a very good reason I got this. I bought this once before, so I'm just getting the wrapping off. And I bought it from Lawrence. Hannah bought one as well, and so did several other people. Hannah's died within 2 weeks, mine died within 5 weeks, and I asked round and nearly everybody else has died as well. There was something wrong with the batch. I think they've got a chill or something, or picked up something nasty in their travels. But those that bothered asking, Lawrence did refund them, and was quite upset that it had happened in the first place, which is good. So this is also a replacement, because I liked the colour so much I've decided we'll have it again. That is absolutely stunning as far as the colour is concerned. It's a combination of peach, heading towards yellow, with gradations, a white centre, with the deepest yellow lip. So I'm trying to tip the thing forward so that you can see the yellow in the lip. Now these are not large flowers, but we do have a bonus. There's 2 plants in the pot, and they're both in flower. They both have 2 spikes. So that's a 4-spike plant, basically, with buds still to open. Not on all the spikes. We've got some buds there. So there are still some buds to open. So it means I'll get virtually the full time out of these. Now what I'm going to do is 2 of the Phalaenopsis on the windowsill in the kitchen are coming out here for a few weeks. The reason being, they haven't bloomed. and I want to kick them. So they're coming out into the, well, bordering on cool, to see if I can kick some spikes off and get them going. And then we might have some winter blooms on those. Anyway, so that's what I got then. Nice healthy plants, good root system, in that the media is not ideal. It's too fine basically for a Phalaenopsis. It means it will stay wet too long. If it was in heat, you know, if I was keeping this in sort of, you know, 27, 28 degrees centigrade, then it wouldn't matter because it would dry out quickly because the moisture would go through the plant at a faster rate and use it up. So it wouldn't be so bad. So anyway, that's the two plants I got. They both came from Lawrence. I didn't get anything from Sarah this time, or from Trey. But that's what I came back with anyway. Those are replacements. Now, I want to try and start it won't be in every video, but certainly in the Sunday video, I want to start a little section, which I will always do at the end, and I don't mean thank you for subscribing and thank you to this, you know, all those thank you bits, because I think they need to be done sometimes, but not every time. And I don't mind if I forget to do them. You know the thank yous are there, and I sort of look along the lines, you shouldn't really need reminding to subscribe to a channel. You either like the channel and you want to see more videos, in which case you know to subscribe. You don't really need somebody to tell you all the time. But what I want to do is start a little section called Roger's Hot Tip. And it's just a very simple tip for a multitude of reasons. You know, it could be looking after that type of plant in the winter. It could be what to do with these plants if it gets hot. Just a simple little tip that will hopefully let you look after your plants a bit better. And this one, I ought to demonstrate it really, but it means messing about with the camera and clearing my worktop off. You'll understand when I tell you. Basically, I will get a pot to show you what I mean though. I need something. So I'm trying to find a clear pot and a type of plant that it would suit. Obviously well prepared, aren't I? I could have done this before I started, couldn't I? Come on then. Come in again. God, it's cold out there today. If it's 13, 14 degrees in here, that's an awful lot less out there. I would suggest that's only about 4 or 5 out there. And the time's getting on now, it's not like it's dawn, crack of dawn or anything. So, let's have a think. I know what I'll get a Nobly out. That will be a good example of what I'm getting at as well. No, I won't. We'll have a Latoria, because it's nearer and I can get at it. Right. Now, those of you who watched the video that I did a few days ago on thinking about dendrobiums heading into the winter, and you know, how you're going to look after them, and a lot of that will depend entirely on what temperatures you can maintain, night temperatures and day temperatures. But this is a Latoria type. The pot is probably about right for the size of the plant, possibly a little too big. I like to dispel the myth. This business of dendrobiums like to be tightly potted, you know, in the smallest pot possible. And no, they don't. It's a myth that's evolved around this very type of dendrobium going into the winter, where it perhaps doesn't get a good enough night and daytime temperature that it would like. Therefore, it's a bit too cold. And it slows down to a standstill and is no longer growing. So why are you watering and feeding it then? If it's no longer growing, what's it going to do with that water and potentially the feed? It's not going to use it up. So what's going to happen to your roots? They're going to rot. Yeah? So it's all geared up to this, and this plant will be in that situation. This plant will be too cold for it to be in its happy zone. hopefully it'll be in its just about surviving zone and it'll come out the other end not really any worse for wear. Luckily its latest two growths have matured in size, but they're not fully mature because the leaves are still pale. Those will darken as time goes on. But the most important thing that I want to talk about is somehow or other we've got to be able to keep this much drier in winter. Now it could be borderline that it's actually still growing a bit, so it would still need some water and a little bit of feed, and this is where you get the catch-22. The question from in the comments was, if you're going to reduce your watering down to next to nothing but your plant's still growing a bit, it will probably need a bit of feed. So what are you going to do about the accumulation of feed, the build-up of salts, when you can't drown the pot to flush it out? You see what I mean? That type of flush is not on in the winter. It would never get used up. That water would just stay there and you'd lose your roots. I can almost guarantee it. Yeah? So Roger's hot tip is to look at the pot from above. Right? I know it's got all the leaves in the way. I'll try and get them out of the way. And think about what you're looking at. And then have a look at the side of the pot and think about what you're looking at. Where are all the roots? Where is the main concentration of roots? It's around the outside of the pot. So if you want to give this a little drinky poos, a drinkette, yeah, a mini drink, where's the best place to pour the water then? It's gently trickle it round the edge, just enough, and watch it go down. It doesn't need to go right down and come out the bottom. It just needs to go down a bit and it will gradually make its way down. And by the time that small amount of water around the edge has distributed itself, this will be damp. And what will the centre of the pot be? Dry. Yeah? So if you do overcook it a little bit round the edge, that trickle round the edge, the dryness in the middle will help absorb some of it. There won't be many living roots down the middle of the pot, I can assure you. There'll either be ones that are not too good, or they'll have already died. The good ones will be around the outside of the pot. That's just the way the orchids spread their roots out, because well, I won't say in their mindset, but in their natural environment, they're trying to grab hold of a branch. So they need to spread the roots out in all directions, and that method of growing their roots stays with them no matter what you do with them. So they try and push away from the plant to grab hold of things. That's why they all end up around the edge of the pot. So my tip will be a very small amount around the outside of the pot. Now if your plant is still growing a bit and you want to give it a little bit of feed, you're now not going to get a surplus of salts with that small amount that you're doing around the edge of the pot, because it can use it. If it's not growing, it won't use it. Yeah? And therefore you've removed the need to drown the pot to flush the excess salts out, because you're not going to put them in there in the first place. So you can apply that to anything really that is not growing much, if at all, through the winter. Now some of my dendrobiums need to be almost dry for the whole of the winter and no food, zero, zilch, not a light. They're a different kettle of fish. This is for things that might be growing a little bit, yeah? Or very slowly and a little bit. So they don't want much food and they don't want much water. If you've got the temperatures and you can keep them growing actively through the winter, and you probably need some extra light to keep the day lengths up, then you don't need to worry about being fussy like that, trying to not to drown the roots. Right, so and I'll try and do one of them now and again, and I'll make sure I'm not going to necessarily include Roger's hot tip in the title, but I'll make sure that the wording, in fact I'll make it a hashtag Roger's hot tip, and I'll put the hashtag in the description. Where else am I going to put it? Makes me laugh, people who put hashtags on the title of on their thumbnail title of their video. It's no good putting it there, you can't click on it. YouTube can't even see it, it's a picture, it's not text. Go steady what you're doing, it's sort of, I've done it myself. I do it with the thing, they seem to have stopped now, the, oh, what the hell were they called? Care collabs, hashtag care collab, and I often put that on my thumbnail. Well, it's useless there, apart from letting everybody know it's a care collab, but it's useless as a functional hashtag. So there we go, and I had quite a chat with Trey about the fact that I've spent most of my orchid life trying to keep the humidity up and keep the temperature down. And now I've changed all my kit round to try and keep my temperature up and my humidity down. And he was saying, I mean, he does a lot of treks, a lot of trips out to where native orchids are growing. He's Australian, in fact. He's done a lot of work out in Australia. And I believe he's discovered some new species and described them, you know. So, and he basically said that it's a little bit of a misconception how much humidity orchids need, because there's an awful lot of orchids that if you go to where they grow, it's not that humid. It's buoyant. It's airy. It's not the steamy jungle impression that we tend to get in our head. And they don't all grow in the steamy jungle anyway. I mean, there's probably a third of the dendrobiums have never seen a jungle. You know, they grow in the deciduous forest higher up. You know, so yeah, a bit of a misdemeanour though. They're not all hot, steamy jungle plants. Those that are, like the higher humidity. The genuine cloud forests, like the higher humidity. But is it really as high as they say? Now yes, if the forest is currently shrouded in mist and fog and cloud, possibly drizzling as well, then yes, everything's soaking wet. It doesn't stay like that all the time. And don't forget, that air is moving up the mountainside all the time. It doesn't sit still. It's always on the move. And that's the reason it's there. It's warm air climbing up that's moist, come off the ocean, blah, blah, blah. And as it rises up, it has to let go of some of the moisture, or it can't climb. Yeah? So its only way over the top is to dump some of the moisture. That's how it works. Right, that'll do for today. It's got a shudder around my neck then. We gone up a bit? Yeah, we're up to 15, 16 now. That probably means my lounge is freezing cold. But I'm lucky that I've only got one. I've got a kitchen window faces north, as does this. And the other side of the house, downstairs, I've got a relatively small window in the lounge. There are no other windows downstairs in this house. There's nothing. You come in the front door to a hallway, there's no windows in there. There's a cupboard, storage cupboard, no windows. There's a toilet, downstairs toilet, no windows. And then there's the kitchen with the window, and then there's this, obviously with the double doors. But the sun comes streaming in through that window, and I open the blinds up, and the sun hits things like furniture and carpets and stuff and generates heat. Guess where the cats sleep? Yeah, as soon as the sun comes round, Mojo's in the corner now already waiting for the sun. He's right up as far over on the settee as he can get, which is where the sun will first come. And then as the sun moves round, he'll move across the settee, onto the floor, across the carpet, and then he'll sit there and go, "Where's the sun gone?" He loves to flake out in the sun. The other one's upstairs on the bed, sound asleep. Right, so there we go. I enjoyed yesterday, but I enjoyed the company I spent most of the day with. Let's put it that way. And yes, I will go to more shows. I did even stop. I had a moment, I'll call it. It was just a moment, because I was talking to somebody, and their treasurer walked past, Karen, went back to her station sort of thing, because she would be dealing with any new members or anything like that, anybody who wanted to join. And I said to the person I was talking to, I said, I wonder what they'd say if I walked up and said, how much is it to join? I'm thinking of joining. I wonder what they'd say. It was only a moment, it didn't last long. Right, so thanks for dropping by. Thanks to the subscribers and everything. If you're not, please do so. And I'll give you yet another prod. I'm sure you're getting fed up with it, but if you haven't done so, if you could wander across to the bonsai channel, because I am having a bit of difficulty getting those subscriber numbers to climb. I've got a good number now, I'm happy with what I've got, and that's mainly thanks to you orchid people that have gone across and helped out. But if you haven't done it and you can do that for me, it would be greatly appreciated. The problem on the bonsai channel is I haven't got enough trees and there's not enough to do to be able to generate lots of videos. So I'm getting a video or two a week at the most, and without the video content, obviously there's not as many people finding the channel and everything. So I think I'm up to about 850 now, and to get to the 1,000, that last 150 could take a long time. But if you can be one of them and watch that little number click up, it will be greatly appreciated. The link's in the description. If you can't see descriptions, I know some gadgets that people watch YouTube on, you can't see the description. I've had people and can't leave comments either, so all they do is watch. It depends what sort of unit if you're watching on a TV, I don't think you can leave a comment and you can't see the description. You just watch the videos. You do a search, find something and watch it. That's how they work. That's what TV's all about, isn't it? So, but yeah, the link is in the description, and if you were on your smart TV and you've got the YouTube app, you can get onto there and do a search. So you could search for Roger's Bonsai with the apostrophe S, and it would take you straight there. But I don't even know if you can use a TV to subscribe to a channel. Maybe not. You certainly can on your phone. So there are ways. There's always ways. And I will see you next time. Things coming up this week. We will have the last part of the Project Orchids. I will apologise. I was going to do what I called a special video. Unfortunately I spent quite a lot of time doing the first 30 seconds. So you can imagine it's nothing like what I normally do. And I've ended up deleting it by mistake, so I probably won't bother now. I may have another go at it sometime. But yeah, it was something that was just totally different from what I normally do. And it was to be an example of what the people that do really well at YouTube and the people who make their living out of YouTube channels telling other people how to do YouTube channels. It was one of those ways of actually, you know, producing a video that will make people watch and make people stay with it and still be there at the end. So it was complete trickery. But I wanted to see if it worked, and I mean I'll probably never end up doing it now, but it was to use all of those tricks and functions and things. And you know, I mean, one of the things they say is that the first thing you do at the beginning is don't tell everybody what you're going to do in the video, because they can now make a decision right at the start that they don't want to watch it. You've given a game away, so don't tell everybody what you're going to do. Leave hints, leave little tips, little leaders, you know. And it's the same with when you get to the end. You know, don't have 3 end screens, because you've now given people a choice, and the choices are they'll probably not watch any of them. Whereas if you give them just the one and they've only got one thing to do, they might do it. So there's all those little tricks. I was going to get them all together in one video and then tell you all about it at the end. The fact that you've been hoodwinked into watching to the end using the trickery from other people's stuff. So now I've told you, it's not worth doing it, is it? And it would have been hard work as well, trying to do everything that was recommended. But it was fun thinking about it, I must admit. And I do use some of those things anyway. I used some of those before I heard anybody tell me about it. So, you know, but yes, and without any trickery, we've got to the end of the video. Thanks for watching. Thanks for dropping by. See you next time.